Okay, so today what I want to do is I want to talk about the 10 biggest shocks I had moving from the Canon R5 to the R5 Mark II.
Oh hey, and do me a favor, if you find this R5 Mark II video useful in any way, shape, or form, I'm going to be doing a lot of them coming up in the next couple of months, and just go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. It is so hard to keep a YouTube channel going these days, and your subscriptions are the only thing that keep this channel going.
Now, without a doubt, the first shock that got me, even before I even cut on the camera, was going to be the battery situation. I know this is something that most of you are aware of, but if you're not, you need to be prepared that if you do not have the new Canon LPE6P batteries, be prepared that this camera is basically completely crippled by the older batteries. I was expecting older batteries might not have as much power capacity, shorter life, but no, you can't even access the most basic things in this camera, like 24 frames per second, which is just shocking to me. Hopefully there's a firmware update on this, but just be aware, if you're getting a Canon R5 II, do not buy one without extra batteries, because you essentially won't be able to access any of the point of having this camera in the first place. All right, shock number 2 is going to come down to the switches on the outside of this camera. The power switch and the video switch have switch sides. The first thing that I would say, I love the fact that now there's a dedicated quick switch between video and photos, and it is fast. If I switch between video and photo, look at that. That is exactly how fast it goes. I can switch back and boom, it's that fast. It's literally just about a second to go between video and photo. I love having that switch rather than having to info and go in there and dial it in. Moving the power switch over to the right, I don't have that big of a problem with. I will admit it was a shock just in the fact that the muscle memory of having all the other Canon R systems, the power switch is always on the left side of the camera, so I'm having a bit of a muscle memory to get used to that. Just be prepared, and if I'm talking about shocks on the outside of the body, I am going to say one really, really good shock, and that is the fact that we have this full-size HDMI here, which I absolutely love. I hated that micro HDMI. So nice to actually see that here. Now, let's go ahead and talk about shock number 3 in here, and that is going to be the menus, and more importantly, the video setup in this Canon R5 Mark II. It is very different from what we've encountered in other Canon R series lines, and it is going to take a moment for you to get used to. Now, the big thing to understand is that when you're in this situation, you can set the movie record format in RAW, XS-AVC, XF-AVCS, which is basically H.264 or H.265, depending on what you want to do. You need to understand what those systems are and how they come into play in your computer. Now, the XF-AVC is more of an H.264, which means it's more old school universal. If your computer's a little slower, it's going to be the best thing for kind of that universal system. The XF-HEVC is going to be that H.265 container, which means it has really, really great compression, saves you a ton of space, but it is clunkier on your machines. You need to be aware of that before you get in there. Make sure you know how your system works. And when I'm looking at this menu, I mean, I will be honest, this menu of how they set up the movie record size, I found to be clunky. I don't think this kind of goes in general that I would consider a shock in general, is there are enough changes in the general menu system that if you're a longtime Canon user, you need to take some time and reaccommodate yourself to how this system now plays up, because it is very, very different than what you've gotten used to in the past. However, if I am speaking of video things, I'm going to go to shock number 4 that I really, really did like, and that is simply the fact that if I go to enable now, I have an access. If I can go to a 2K option like this, I can now go to 240 frames per second. This is really, really nice having this option. It is something I've been dreaming about for a long time on any kind of Canon mirrorless camera like this, and to have that 240 frames a second in that 1080 kind of standard HD is a great choice to have just for creative purposes. I'd also like to point out I really, really do like the option in this camera that you can record. Let's say you want to do up to 4K 120, you can record that with basically sound embedded in it, or it can do a conversion in camera. I love having those two options in this camera. The slow-mo options on this are something that I really, really did love seeing. A definite improvement, in my opinion, over what you had in the Canon R5. All right, now as far as shock number 5, let's go ahead and look at it, because this is a huge one, I think, for most of us out there, and that is being able to do a custom picture profile, and check that out. We can now get C-Log 2 on our camera. This is something that I think every single one of us that are video shooters have really, really wanted to see on the Canon R5 for a long time. It is fantastic to see that. It gives you that extra dynamic range. Having that option is something that you are going to be very, very happy to have. All right, now shock number 6 is something that if you do any type of live recording or anything that involves any sort of anticipation is going to make your life an incredible difference. And that is pre-recording in video mode and pre-capture in the photo mode of these cameras. You can click these on. I'm in video right now. If you click this on, you can do pre-recording, which essentially runs a loop that's always running. And if you, anytime you hit record, it's going to go back in time and make sure that those seconds you had set before are doing it. You can set the recording time to both a 5-second or a 3-second preview, depending on the buffer. I figure if you're going to do this, you might as well keep it at 5 seconds. But this is absolutely essential if you're doing a lot of live kind of documentary type stuff, because it lets you capture those moments you might have just missed out on or get. I found this very, very helpful. And if you go over to the photo mode, you will see you can still get pre-capture on your photos as well. This is absolutely a fantastic thing to have, because if you're doing anything photography-wise, as long as you have it on a drive servo type system, you can sit there and capture before something happens. If you got birds taking off, you can get that moment right when it happens. Athletes, anything like that is really, really great to have. All right, and speaking of capturing all these things really fast, that's going to bring me to shock number 7 in the system, and that is the autofocus changes that have gone between these cameras. Now, this is one of those things, you really start to see this AI stuff start to come in, and I think as I've started using this, you start to realize what a big change this is between the Canon R5. Now, if you come here into the AF menu, it is set up different. And that's, you can come and start doing these kind of subject people. Action priority is absolutely insane. I don't do a lot of sports photography, so that's not going to be something that makes a difference for me. But if you do find yourself doing that, it is, I went out and tested it with my kids. It was absolutely incredible to check that out. But what I found interesting is if you come to the servo AF, the menu became very, very simple. It basically has an auto and a manual case sensitivity setting that you can do. And that's it. It's a much more simplified system than what was in there because of the AI. Now, for me personally, I did find the auto AF to be just a little too jumpy and a little off. So I found that if I took the tracking sensitivity and kind of brought it down and just kind of chilled it out a little bit, I got really, really good results. But be aware, if you get this system, the autofocus system is very different. You need to take some time and play with it. Now, if I'm talking about the autofocus system, I got to bring up what I would consider shock number 8, and that is the IAF built here into the viewfinder. Now, this is only acceptable in photo mode, not video mode, but I'll be honest, I thought this was going to be kind of a gimmick, but once I started playing with it, it is actually very, very useful and very, very accessible to me if I'm using it. There's one caveat to this. I wear glasses and contacts. I switch between them. If I'm wearing my contacts, this thing works great. If you're wearing glasses, I found it to be a bit spotty. Just be aware of that. I found the AF to be something I didn't think was going to be that cool, and once I got it, it worked much better than I was expecting, and I was very, very shocked to see that happen. All right, now shock number 9 of the Canon R5 II is the almost useful new exposure tools in this camera. Now, the Canon R5 Mark II kind of threw me for a loop in the fact that it included some exposure tools that we've absolutely been dreaming about having in a small form mirrorless camera like that, and that is going to be waveform and false color. The only problem that I've encountered with this is that they've made it really, really impractical to use, and you can't really use it in any kind of functional way when you're on set if you have to go with any kind of efficiency. And there are 2 limitations to this that I think you should be aware of if you're getting this and are excited about these exposure tools. The first thing is, let's talk about false color. Now, when you're using false color and you're using C-Log, you can't have the view assist on your camera, and this is a very, very big limitation because when you're shooting in log, it is so flat. You want to have that view assist just so you have a general idea of what you're going to be looking at when you get in post. It just makes your life easier. It looks better if clients are seeing it. Just makes your life generally being. And for some reason, when you have view assist on, if you hit false color, it doesn't let you access it when you do it. It's not like the R5C, which does. And now if you look here at the camera, I have a button that I've assigned to go to false color. Now if I hit it, if you'll notice, nothing happens on my camera, and that's because I have view assist on. So what I have to do is I have to go into my menu system here, and I actually have to turn off my view assist. I'll turn this both off, the HDMI, and now what you'll see how flat my image is, and now when I hit the false color button, there it'll come on. I really hope there's a firmware update coming that will, if you hit false color, it'll automatically disable view assist just so you can see what's going on in false color and then hit it back. But as it stands right now, this is a very, very clunky workaround to get around. It really, really makes this not practical. It's really, really stinks having something this great and accessible in your camera, and you got to go that weird workaround to get it. The other really great exposure tool on this camera that it has is waveform. And once again, for whatever reason, Canon has made it very, very difficult to get it. I'll show you what I'm talking about. You can get this display. So if I hit the info button and cycle through, I get the classic histogram there, and it gives me all the stuff that I have, but it won't give me my waveform as part of that system. And even if I come here and let's say I want to set up my screen info display settings, you will see I can set up and have a histogram option, go clean, all that stuff, but there's no option here to have a waveform as part of my info displays. I don't understand why that would give me a histogram and not a waveform, and why I can't do that. And even if I go here to info and let's say I want to set that up and maybe customize it, you will see I can't get that option. I can only get a histogram and that is it. It would be really, really nice if there's an extra option there that you could click on a waveform or do that. And where this gets even worse is if you come over here into your custom buttons, you will see now that if I come here into video, I'm just gonna hit one of my buttons here. Let's say I wanna set this one right here to it. If I scroll through, you will see that there is no waveform that I can set up as a custom button. Now this is something that I think all of us that shoot really would like to have. We just want to hit one button, pull up our waveform, and cut it back off again. We don't need to have it on there the entire time. Maybe we do, maybe we don't, but we want to have the option to hide it. And right now, at least is the way that I can discover, and maybe someone out there has found another way, I don't know. If you do, please leave me a comment down below and I will happily post a workaround to this. But right now, the only way to do it is you got to come back here to the red menu, and you have to come into shooting info display. You have to come down here into waveform setting, and then we can set it on. And when we do that, now you will see the waveform comes off. If I want to cut it off, I got to come back in here, scroll back down to waveform setting, cut it on and off. So clunky, so slow. I wish they would just give us a customized button that we could do. Hopefully there's a firmware update of that. So if you've gotten this camera excited about these new exposure tools, you should be aware that it comes at a cost, at least in the current firmware as it stands right now. All right, and my 10th and last shock that I would say that I really have found myself really, really liking is the fact that you can get your lens display info here on the set. I didn't think this was something that would really matter to me, but once I set it up, it was really, really nice. And you can see here as I zoom in, look at that. You see I'm at 67, 68, 66 millimeters. I just really loved having that ability to get that information in my camera. It just really, really helped me, especially when I'm doing a lot of multi-camera stuff, or I want to set stuff up, or even if I want to come back and shoot something in a similar way later. I love having that precision, especially if you're using zoom lenses. And the way that sets it up is you come into the shooting info display, hit that, and as you come down, you will see at the bottom that there's lens display. You can basically hit that on to enable, and then you're going to get this great little marker there letting you know exactly what is happening when you zoom in. Now, I know I said 10 shocks. I will say one bonus shock that I did like here is I really did love being able to come here and set up this anti-flicker thing, and the fact that when you enable this, you can actually come here and really dial in. I love how you can precisely dial in your shutter to try and get rid of flicker. This is really, really useful. I've already found myself using this, and I love the fact that if you have like a TV or screen that's on there that's a little bit off, you can actually come here and you can go and point it right at a camera. It's going to detect the flicker, don't move, and does it, and the camera will try and decipher that to get you rid of the flicker in camera. Really, really cool feature. I found it something that I didn't ever expect to use, but now I find myself using it more and more. So there you go, guys. Obviously, the Canon R5 is a very unique beast, and there are some shocks if you're coming from the R5. I haven't covered all of them because there's even more to go in there, but these are the ones that just kind of stuck out to me, the biggest ones right out of the gate. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. Leave me notes and comments down below. Yeah, go out there, keep on shooting, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon.